I didn't know my life was about to split in two over a rooftop cocktail and one sentence spoken like a claim of ownership. The kind of corporate party where the skyline is meant to distract you from the way everyone's smiling too hard. My husband Ryan had been anxious for weeks. Summit Creative's annual rooftop event was basically his Super Bowl: marble floors, crystal chandeliers, bite-sized appetizers that cost more than my first hourly rate, and a jazz band that sounded like cats tiptoeing across piano keys. I went as his plus one. The supportive wife, the safe wife. At least that's what they thought. Because when people hear cybersecurity consulting, they either demand I fix their iPhone or they start acting like I'm reading their emails. So I learned to keep it simple. I build furniture, I'd say, and smile. And that night, everyone at Summit knew me as Ryan's carpenter wife, the woman who made tables as a hobby and nodded politely while executives discussed quarterly projections like they were solving world hunger. 2 hours in, the atmosphere shifted. Derek Walsh, Ryan's boss, started working the room like a politician with a whiskey buzz and an ego you could rent out as office space. People straightened when he approached. Laughs got louder. Postures got tighter. Then Derek stopped in front of us, eyes sliding over Ryan first, like my husband was a trophy on display, before landing on me like I was a stain on expensive carpet. He squinted. "Clara," he started, looking at me, then blinked, correcting himself as the circle around us grew. "Right, you're, Carla?" "My name is Claire," I said evenly. He laughed like that was adorable. Then he clapped Ryan's shoulder like they were buddies. "And you must be the craftsman," he said, drawing out the word the way people say cute to a toddler. Ryan's fingers tightened around his drink. I could feel him silently begging me not to escalate. Derek leaned in, loud enough for half the rooftop to hear. "Here's the thing," he announced. "At work, he's mine. Deadline at midnight. He's there. Client emergencies on Sunday. He's there." He paused, savoring the attention. Then he smiled at me, slow, smug, territorial. "So what I'm saying is..." Derek nodded toward Ryan. "He's mine at work. You wait for your turn at home." The silence hit like a slap. And then, like he wanted to make sure I understood exactly how little I mattered, Derek made a dismissive little spit right in my direction. I lifted one of those overpriced napkins, wiped my face slowly, and held his gaze. "You sure you're his boss?" I said calmly. "Because that's the kind of behavior HR uses in training videos. You know, the what not to do ones." Derek's grin froze. Ryan's breath caught. And somewhere behind Derek, I saw a phone raised, recording. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just a party. This was the beginning of an ending. If you'd asked me a week before that party what my marriage looked like, I would have said we were solid. Not perfect, not movie love, not the kind that stays effortless forever, but solid in the way you learn to appreciate after you've watched other couples burn themselves down for pride, boredom, or ego. My name is Claire Cooper. I work in cybersecurity consulting, specifically infrastructure design and maintenance for clients who can't afford mistakes, Fortune 500 companies, and sometimes government agencies. If their systems get compromised, it's not, "Oops, we lost some files." It's lawsuits, investigations, headlines, and careers ending in a single news cycle. The job pays extremely well because the stakes are extremely real, and I'm good at it. But cybersecurity is a strange kind of profession to mention at dinner parties. The moment people know what you do, two things happen. They either start panicking, like your presence means their private life is being scanned like a virus, or they shove their phone in your face and say, "Hey, can you just fix this?" So early on, I learned to deflect. "I build furniture," I'd say. And technically, it wasn't even a lie. Woodworking is my hobby, my therapy, the one place my brain stops spinning through threat models and worst-case scenarios. There's something grounding about measuring twice, cutting once, sanding until the surface is smooth, and knowing that what you build will hold weight because you built it right. That was how I wanted my marriage to feel too. Something built carefully, something that lasted. Ryan and I met in college. He was the kind of guy who could make a crowded room feel easy. Quick smile, warm eyes, that calm confidence that made people trust him without realizing why. I was more reserved, observant, the kind of woman who listened first and decided later. He studied marketing and creative strategy. I was in the tech track, already leaning towards security because I liked the invisible battles, the ones nobody sees until something breaks. In our early years, we balanced each other. Ryan brought me out of my head. I grounded him when his ambition turned into anxiety. When he landed at Summit Creative, he was proud. So proud it showed in the way he stood a little taller, like that job proved something about him. Summit was a massive agency, the kind that charged companies six figures just to tell them their logo needed to feel more dynamic. Ryan was legitimately brilliant at what he did, and I loved watching him in his element, sketching ideas on napkins, talking through campaigns like they were puzzles, obsessing over details most people would never notice. I also noticed early on that Summit wasn't just demanding, it was predatory. Ryan would get late-night calls, weekend emergencies, messages that weren't requests so much as commands. And it always came back to one person, Derek Walsh. Ryan described Derek like people describe storms, unpredictable, loud, unavoidable. He's intense, Ryan would say, shrugging like he'd learned to normalize it. He wants results. But over time, I started hearing the subtext. Transfers requested after only a few months on Derek's team. HR complaints that went nowhere. Junior employees who looked haunted whenever Derek's name was mentioned. And Ryan? Ryan had this reflex around Derek that made my stomach tighten. He'd laugh a little too quickly at Derek's jokes, agree too fast, apologize for things that weren't his fault. It wasn't admiration. It was fear disguised as loyalty. The night of the rooftop party, Ryan looked stunning in an emerald dress. No, wait, that was the old version of the story people expected. In ours, Ryan was in a crisp suit, perfectly fitted, the kind of man who belonged at that party. And I wore a navy dress, simple, elegant, nothing flashy, paired with a calm smile that hid the fact I'd already clocked the way people at Summit measured worth like a reflex. We arrived, and within minutes I could feel it. The networking, the rehearsed laughter, the handshakes that came with mental calculations. Ryan squeezed my hand once, subtle, a silent request. Please just get through tonight. Please don't make this harder. I didn't plan to. I planned to stand beside my husband and let the night pass. But I didn't understand something yet. When a man like Derek Walsh sees someone he thinks is beneath him, he can't resist proving it. And when he chose me as his target right in front of Ryan, he didn't just insult me. He exposed exactly how he saw my husband, as something he owned. After the party, nothing officially happened. No emails, no meetings, no HR summons, just silence. And silence, I learned, can be louder than shouting. Ryan didn't talk much on the ride home that night. His hands stayed locked on the steering wheel, knuckles pale, jaw tight. The city lights blurred past the windshield like nothing had happened, like a man hadn't just claimed ownership of him in public and spat in my direction like I was an inconvenience. I let the quiet stretch. Not because I didn't have things to say, but because I wanted to hear what he would say first. Finally, at a red light, Ryan exhaled hard. You didn't have to do that, he said. I turned slightly toward him. Which part? Calling him out like that, he replied. Derek was drunk. He didn't mean it like that. I felt something shift inside my chest, not anger yet, but disappointment. He meant it exactly like that, I said quietly. You don't accidentally tell someone their spouse belongs to you. Ryan flinched. You embarrassed him, in front of everyone. And he humiliated you, I said, in front of everyone. The light turned green. He drove. That was the first crack. Not because we argued, we didn't raise our voices, but because I realized how deeply Ryan had learned to absorb things he shouldn't have had to. Over the next few days, Summit became colder. Ryan would come home distracted, exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with workload. He checked his phone constantly. Emails from Derek came later at night, earlier in the morning. Urgent, time-sensitive, non-negotiable. He's just stressed, Ryan said once, when I asked why he'd canceled dinner with my parents for the third time. This quarter's brutal. But I started noticing patterns. Meetings Ryan was suddenly excluded from. Projects reassigned without explanation. Praise that used to come easily now delivered with backhanded compliments. You did great, Derek would say, according to Ryan. But next time, don't overthink it. You tend to get emotional. Emotional. About campaign metrics. I'd seen enough toxic environments to recognize punishment disguised as feedback. And then there were the comments. Little ones, casual ones. Derek joked that I must be distracted at home lately. He said I should be grateful he puts up with my outside influences. He asked if I'd told you yet how demanding this job really is. Each time, Ryan said it like he was recounting weather. Unpleasant, unavoidable. And each time I felt my patience thinning. Not with Derek. With the way Ryan kept minimizing it. One night, after he'd fallen asleep, I sat on the edge of our bed and replayed the party in my head. The crowd. The way Derek spoke. The certainty in his voice. This wasn't a one-off. This was entitlement. And entitlement only grows when it's tolerated. What Ryan didn't know, what Derek definitely didn't know, was that Summit Creative wasn't just Ryan's employer, it was also my client. 3 years earlier, my firm had quietly redesigned Summit's entire server infrastructure. Firewalls, backups, authentication protocols, the works. It was a clean, elegant system, the kind you only notice when it fails. And we still maintained it under a very quiet, very lucrative contract. Only a handful of people in Summit's IT department knew my name, and none of them were in Derek's circle. I hadn't planned on that information mattering. I didn't keep it secret as leverage. I kept it secret because it was easier, cleaner, less complicated. Ryan had his world. I had mine. But now? Now Derek had turned my marriage into a power play. And the more I watched Ryan shrink himself to keep the peace, the more something inside me hardened. Not into rage, but resolve. I wasn't going to storm into Summit. I wasn't going to threaten anyone. But I wasn't going to pretend this was normal anymore. Because when a man believes he owns someone at work, it's only a matter of time before he tries to take more. And Derek Walsh had already crossed a line. He just didn't realize yet how visible his footsteps were. The breaking point didn't come with shouting. It came with panic. 3 days after the party, I was in my home office, barefoot, coffee going cold beside my keyboard, reviewing a proposal for a regional bank in Chicago. The kind of client that cared deeply about uptime and deeply feared headlines. My phone buzzed. Ryan. Not a text. A call. I answered immediately. Claire, he said, breathless. The servers are down. I straightened. Down how? All of it. Creative files, client decks, shared drives, everything. Nobody can access anything. Derek is losing his mind. He's yelling at a T. It's yelling at each other. And we have a client presentation in 3 hours that literally doesn't exist right now. I closed my eyes for a second. Is there an error message? I asked. I don't know. They're just saying corruption and outage and we're working on it. I needed to hear your voice. Today is already a disaster. I could hear it then. Not the stress. The fear. This wasn't about missed files. This was about Ryan knowing that Derek would make this personal. I'm sure they'll fix it, I said carefully. These things usually resolve faster than they feel. I hope so, he said. Derek already implied this reflects poorly on my leadership. Of course he did. We hung up and I stared at my screen for a long moment. Then I logged in. My admin credentials still worked. Of course they did. Within 30 seconds, I saw the problem. 17 ignored warnings. 17 automated alerts about a critical security update that Summit's system administrator had postponed. The patch addressed a known vulnerability in their file management system, one that caused database corruption under heavy simultaneous access, which is exactly what happened at 8 o'clock a.m. when the entire creative department tried to download the same massive client presentation. It was a textbook failure. The fix? 20 minutes, maybe less. I sat back in my chair. This was the moment where I could do nothing. Let Summit burn for a few hours. Let Derek flail. Let him feel powerless for once. I wouldn't be causing the damage, I'd just be not fixing it. The vindictive part of my brain, the small, sharp voice I usually kept locked away, was loud. He spat on you. He claimed your husband like property. He's punishing Ryan now. My phone buzzed again. A forwarded email from my business partner, Marcus Chen. Subject line, Summit Creative having a bad day, LOL. It was a full-blown corporate panic spiral. Reply all chaos. Executives demanding answers. IT apologizing without explaining anything. Derek copied on every thread, escalating, capitalizing letters, making it clear someone would pay for this. I looked at the fix again. Simple, clean, professional. I sighed. Guilt is a strange thing. It makes you do generous things for people who don't deserve them, just so the people you love don't suffer. I fixed it. I patched the vulnerability, cleaned the corrupted data, optimized a few things while I was there because I take pride in my work, even when the client's leadership is rotten. 22 minutes later, Summit's systems were humming like nothing had happened. An hour after that, Marcus forwarded another email. This one made me laugh out loud. It was from Derek Walsh, company-wide. Team, thanks to my direct intervention and quick thinking, we've resolved this morning's technical issues. I worked closely with IT to identify and fix the problem. This is why strong leadership matters in crisis situations. I actually had to sit down. The audacity was breathtaking. The man who'd spent the morning screaming at IT had just taken credit for a fix he didn't even understand. Did you see this? Marcus texted. Yep. You gonna say something? Nope. Because here's what Derek didn't know. Every action on Summit's system was logged, time-stamped, attributed, and the audit trail didn't care about ego or executive titles. My user account was all over it. And more importantly, Derek's performance had drawn the attention of someone who mattered. By Thursday afternoon, Ryan called again, but his voice was different this time. "Okay," he said, almost laughing, "you're not going to believe this." "What?" "The board ordered a full IT audit. They want to understand our infrastructure after this week's outage. Derek's been bragging about his tech instincts, and apparently one board member actually knows computers and wants proof." I leaned back in my chair. Audits were thorough. They looked at contracts, vendors, system logs, and when Summit's board opened the confidential vendor files, they were going to find something very interesting. A contract with Cooper & Chen Cybersecurity Solutions, with me listed as senior consultant and primary system architect. The carpenter wife Derek had spat on? She'd built the digital foundation his entire department stood on. And Gravity was about to do what Gravity always does: pull the truth to the surface. The day the truth surfaced, I wasn't in a glass office or a boardroom. I was in Home Depot. I had a cart full of lumber, comparing wood stains, early American versus special walnut, when my phone started vibrating like it was having a panic attack. "Ryan, again," I answered, already bracing myself. "Claire," he said without preamble, "what did you do?" I blinked. "I'm deciding between stains. Why?" "No," he said sharply. "I'm serious. What did you do?" I could hear it now, not fear, not anger, but disbelief. "Ryan," I said calmly, "I promise you I haven't committed a felony in the paint aisle." "That's not funny," he replied. "The audit report came back. Your name is everywhere. People are saying you're not just a carpenter. They're saying you built our entire system, that you're important." I leaned against a stack of plywood. "Yeah," I said. "About 3 years ago, my firm got the contract. It's good work, solid pay, interesting challenges." There was silence. "You never told me," Ryan finally said. "I didn't hide it," I replied gently. "I just didn't make it a thing. You loved your job. I loved mine. Keeping them separate felt easier." "Easier," he repeated slowly. "Ryan, listen to me," I said. "This isn't about ego. I didn't want you feeling like my career was overshadowing yours. And honestly, it never mattered. Until now." He exhaled shakily. "You should have told me," he said. "Not because of status, but because Derek used that ignorance against us, against me." That hit. And for the first time, I let myself feel a flicker of regret. "I'm sorry," I said. "I thought I was protecting you. Turns out I was just underestimating how ugly power can get." He laughed then, soft, incredulous. "You know what happened this morning?" he said. "The CFO thanked your firm in the executive briefing. Mentioned how you saved us 6 figures in potential breach costs last quarter." I smiled despite myself. "Oh?" Derek went white, Ryan continued. Like someone had told him Santa wasn't real, and also that Santa wanted his taxes. He didn't say a word for the rest of the meeting. Good. But beneath the satisfaction, something else surfaced. Anger. Not the explosive kind. The quiet kind that settles in your bones. Because I realized Derek hadn't just underestimated me. He'd assumed that Ryan's value came from him. That Ryan's time, talent, and loyalty were his to command. And Ryan? Ryan had let him. That night, we sat at our kitchen table long after dinner went cold. "I should have shut him down sooner," Ryan said, staring at his hands. "I kept telling myself it was just the job, just pressure." "That's how it always starts," I said. "They make you think endurance is professionalism." "I didn't want to lose everything we've built," he admitted. "The mortgage, the stability." "And I didn't want you thinking I was competing with you," I said. So I stayed quiet. We looked at each other then, really looked. Two people who'd been trying to protect each other by shrinking themselves. "Claire," Ryan said finally, "if this blows up, if Derek comes after me—" "I won't let him," I said. "Not as a threat. As a fact." The next email came 3 days later. From Angela Martinez, Summit's head of HR. Subject line, confidential, professional consultation request. They wanted me to participate in a formal review of workplace conduct stemming from the annual party. A third-party consultant. What they really meant was, we need the truth, and we need it clean. Ryan stared at me when I showed him. "They're actually taking this seriously," he said. "They have to," I replied. "There's video." His eyes widened. "Video?" I nodded. "Someone recorded the whole thing." Ryan leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "I don't know how to feel," he admitted. "Part of me is relieved. Part of me feels like I'm betraying him." "Ryan," I said gently, "you're not betraying him. You're telling the truth. There's a difference." He swallowed. "What if this costs me my job?" I reached across the table and took his hand. Then we'll handle that, I said. But what it won't cost you is your dignity. The meeting was scheduled for the following Tuesday. And for the first time since that party, I didn't feel reactive. I felt ready, because no matter how this ended, one thing was already clear. Derek Walsh had mistaken silence for weakness. And Ryan and I were done paying that price. The week between the HR email and the scheduled meeting felt like walking through a building where the fire alarm had gone off. But no one was allowed to say the word fire. Everything looked normal. Nothing felt normal. Ryan said Summit was buzzing in a low, anxious way. Conversations stopped when certain people walked into rooms. Slack messages were suddenly shorter, more careful. Meetings got rescheduled pending availability, which everyone knew meant pending damage assessment. And Derek? Derek was performing. He's acting like nothing's wrong, Ryan told me one night, loosening his tie as he came through the door. Actually, worse, he's acting benevolent. That made my stomach tighten. How so? I asked. He complimented my work today, publicly, said I was indispensable. Ryan snorted. Used that exact word. Indispensable. The same man who'd claimed ownership of him like a resource. That's not kindness, I said. That's insurance. Ryan nodded. That's what it felt like. Then came the family pressure. Ryan's mother called first. She never called during work hours unless something was wrong. Claire, she said, voice tight with concern. Ryan mentioned there's some tension at work. I waited. Well, she continued, I just want to remind you both how competitive that industry is. These things can blow over if you don't make them bigger than they need to be. Translation, please don't rock the boat. Derek crossed a line, I said calmly, publicly. She sighed. Men like that are difficult, yes, but they also control opportunities. Ryan has worked so hard. I'd hate for pride to undo that. Pride. It was always framed as pride when someone finally said no. I'm not asking Ryan to burn anything down, I said. I'm asking him not to accept being treated like property. There was a pause. Well, she said carefully, just be wise. After the call, Ryan sat beside me, shoulders heavy. She doesn't get it, he said quietly. No, I agreed. She gets it. She just learned to survive it. At work, Derek's allies started circling. People Ryan thought were friends began asking pointed questions. So, that thing at the party, one coworker said too casually. You sure it wasn't taken out of context? Another joked. HR loves to overreact these days. Everyone's offended. Ryan came home angry, jaw tight. They're acting like I'm the problem, he said. Like I should have managed him better. That's how systems protect themselves, I replied. They push the discomfort downhill. Meanwhile, more information surfaced. Marcus sent me logs the auditors had flagged. Unpatched vulnerabilities. Ignored warnings. Risk assessments Derek had overridden because they were too expensive or slowed creativity. The outage hadn't been bad luck. It had been negligence. And Derek had signed off on it. The board noticed. By the end of the week, Derek was in closed-door meetings all day. His assistant, Jennifer, looked exhausted, eyes rimmed red when Ryan passed her in the hallway. She won't look at me, Ryan said that night, like she's afraid. She's afraid of being collateral, I said. People always are. Then Derek made his move. Ryan got called into Derek's office late Friday afternoon. No HR, no witnesses. Just the two of them. He shut the door, Ryan said later, voice low. Sat down like this with some heart-to-heart. I pictured it easily. Derek leaned back, fingers steepled, voice measured. He said he'd misjudged me, Ryan continued. Said the party got out of hand, that we should put it behind us. And? I asked. And then he said this, Ryan swallowed. He said you don't want this investigation defining your career. There it was, the threat wrapped in concern. I told him I wasn't the one who recorded the video, Ryan said, and I wasn't the one who ordered the audit. What did he say? I asked. He smiled, Ryan said, and said, careers are long, memories are short. My hands curled into fists. That night, Ryan barely slept. Neither did I. Not because I was scared, but because I could feel the momentum building. Pressure from every direction. Family, co-workers, power structures closing ranks. And yet something else was happening too. Ryan was changing. He stopped apologizing for things that weren't his fault. Stopped softening his words. Stopped laughing at jokes that weren't funny. When his mother called again, he answered himself. No, he said simply, we're not backing down. On Monday morning, Angela Martinez confirmed the meeting time. Tuesday, 10 a.m. Legal present. Witnesses interviewed. Video evidence reviewed. Derek's name was never mentioned in the email. It didn't need to be. That evening, Ryan and I sat together on the couch, the house quiet. What if this goes badly? He asked. I turned to him fully. Then it goes badly honestly, I said. And I'll take that over surviving comfortably in something that's slowly hollowing you out. He nodded, eyes shining. I'm scared, he admitted. I know, I said, but you're not alone, and you're not wrong. Outside, the city hummed, indifferent, relentless. Inside, the walls felt steady, because no matter how much Derek tried to rewrite the narrative, the truth had weight. And once it started falling, it didn't stop halfway. The night before the HR meeting, everything went quiet in the way storms do right before they hit. Ryan sat at the dining table with his laptop closed in front of him, not working, not scrolling, just staring at the wood grain like it might offer answers. I watched him from the kitchen, noticing things I hadn't before. The way his shoulders sloped forward now, like he'd been carrying weight for too long. The way his jaw tightened whenever his phone buzzed, even if it was just a spam notification. The way confidence, once so natural to him, had been slowly replaced by vigilance. This feels like standing at the edge of something, he said finally. Like once I step forward, there's no going back. I dried my hands and sat across from him. That's because there isn't, I said gently. But there's also no going back to pretending everything was fine. He nodded, but his eyes stayed dark. What if they protect him, he asked. What if all this just disappears? What if I'm the one who gets labeled difficult? That was the fear Derek had been feeding. The idea that power was permanent, that consequences were optional for the right people. I reached for Ryan's hands. Then we'll know, I said, and knowing is still better than living small to avoid punishment. He squeezed my fingers, but I could feel how cold his hands were. Later that night, after he finally fell asleep, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. For the first time since this started, doubt crept in. Not about the truth, but about the cost. I thought about how easy it would have been to stay quiet, to laugh it off, to tell Ryan, that's just how powerful men are. Don't take it personally. I thought about how many people, especially women, are taught to smooth things over, to de-escalate, to protect careers instead of dignity. And I wondered briefly if I'd miscalculated. Not legally, not strategically, emotionally. Because the truth was, I didn't just fear Derek's power. I feared what this was doing to Ryan. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message from Jennifer, Derek's assistant. Unknown number. I don't know if I should be sending this, but I think you should know. Derek's been blaming Ryan, saying Ryan set him up. He told legal that Ryan provoked him on purpose. I stared at the screen. My chest tightened, not in surprise, but in something heavier. Betrayal, even when expected, still hurts. I typed back carefully. Thank you for telling me. You don't owe us anything. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. I didn't sleep after that. The morning came too fast. Ryan dressed slowly, mechanically. He wore a simple suit, nothing flashy, nothing defensive. He looked like himself, but stripped down, raw. I keep thinking, he said quietly as we drove, if I'd just laughed it off that night. I glanced at him. Then you'd still belong to him, I said, and he'd know it. The building looked colder than usual. Glass, steel, clean lines that pretended neutrality while protecting power. We sat in the car for a moment before getting out. This might change everything, Ryan said. I took his face in my hands. Or it might finally make things honest, I replied. Either way, you walk in there with the truth. That's all you control. He nodded. Inside, the waiting room was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Jennifer sat across from us, eyes downcast. Angela Martinez appeared exactly on time. Professional, calm, unreadable. Thank you for coming, she said. We'll begin shortly. As the conference room door closed behind us, I felt it. That unmistakable sense of standing at the lowest point before something breaks open. This was the moment where everything Ryan had endured either became invisible or undeniable. And for the first time, I accepted a truth I hadn't wanted to say out loud. No matter how this ended, our lives would not go back to the way they were. Because once you see the machinery behind power, once you refuse to unsee it, you can't return to being comfortable inside it. You either shrink or you step through. And Ryan was done shrinking. The conference room smelled faintly of coffee and recycled air, the kind of neutral space designed to feel safe while quietly recording everything you say. Angela Martinez took the seat at the head of the table. To her right sat a man from legal, mid-40s, expensive glasses, expression carefully blank. Across from us was a woman with a laptop already open, fingers hovering, ready to document history in bullet points. And then there was Jennifer, Derek's assistant. She sat stiffly, hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the table like it might crack open and swallow her whole. Angela began without ceremony. This is a confidential review regarding an incident at the company's annual celebration 6 weeks ago, she said evenly. We are here to establish facts, not assign emotion. I appreciated that. Facts don't bend. She turned to me. Ms. Cooper, we understand you were directly involved in the incident. Please describe what happened. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't soften it either. I described Derek's approach, his intoxication, the way he addressed Ryan like an asset, the exact words, "He's mine at work. You wait for your turn at home." I described the silence that followed, the public nature of it, the way Ryan's shoulders tightened beside me. Then I described the spit. Not exaggerated, not emotional. Just factual. The legal representative looked up for the first time. Were there witnesses? He asked. Approximately 40, I said. It was crowded near the bar. Angela nodded. We've interviewed several. Their accounts align with yours. She paused, then reached for an iPad. I'd like to show you something. She turned the screen toward us. The video started playing. Derek, swaying slightly, smiling like a man who believed he was untouchable. His voice loud, confident, unchallenged. He's mine at work. The camera angle caught Ryan's face. Tight, uncomfortable, trapped between hierarchy and humiliation. Then the spit. Even worse on video than in memory. Casual, dismissive, dehumanizing. The room stayed silent as my response played. You sure you're his boss? Because that's the kind of behavior HR uses as training material. Angela paused the video. Is this accurate? She asked. Yes, I said. She looked at Ryan. Mr. Cooper, did you provoke Mr. Walsh in any way prior to this? Ryan met her gaze. No, he said. I was standing next to my wife. Jennifer's breath caught. Angela turned to her gently. Jennifer, we understand this is difficult, but we need honesty. Did Mr. Walsh discuss this incident with you afterward? Jennifer swallowed. Yes, she said softly. And what did he say? She hesitated, then lifted her eyes. He said Ryan embarrassed him on purpose, that Ryan should have warned him about Claire, about who she was. The legal rep's pen stopped moving. Angela's expression changed. Not shocked, but resolved. Thank you, she said quietly. The meeting continued for another half hour. They asked about Derek's management style, his comments over time, his influence over Ryan's workload, the late-night expectations, the implicit threats. Ryan answered calmly, clearly. No exaggeration, no bitterness, just truth. As we wrapped up, Angela folded her hands. On behalf of Summit Creative, she said, I want to apologize for what you experienced. That behavior does not reflect our standards. I held her gaze. Then make sure it doesn't happen again, I said. She nodded once. We are addressing it. And in her tone, measured firm, I knew. This wasn't damage control anymore. This was correction. 3 days later, Derek Walsh was formally suspended pending investigation. 2 weeks after that, he resigned to pursue other opportunities. Corporate language for you're done. The fallout was immediate. Executives distanced themselves. Allies went quiet. The people who'd once laughed at his jokes suddenly remembered his behavior very clearly. Ryan came home the night the announcement went out looking lighter, like someone had finally set something down. I didn't realize how much of myself I'd been holding back, he admitted, just to survive. I kissed his forehead. You don't have to survive anymore, I said. You get to exist. That wasn't the end. But it was the turning point. Because the power Derek thought he had, it was never real. It was borrowed, propped up by silence, fear, and people too tired to push back. And the moment we stopped feeding it, it collapsed under its own weight. The aftermath didn't explode. It unraveled. Slowly, publicly, irreversibly. Derek Walsh's resignation email landed in inboxes on a quiet Thursday morning. No dramatic language, no admission of wrongdoing. Just a carefully sanitized paragraph about new directions and personal growth. But everyone knew. You could feel it in the building. Ryan told me the office atmosphere shifted within hours. People spoke more freely, laughed more easily. Doors that used to stay shut were suddenly open. Power vacuums always reveal the truth. Within days, stories surfaced. Junior designers who'd transferred teams just to get away from Derek. Late-night messages that had nothing to do with work. Meetings where credit mysteriously changed hands. None of it was new. It was just finally safe to say out loud. The board moved quickly. Too quickly for anyone to pretend this was coincidence. Ryan forwarded me internal emails, requests for documentation, invitations to listening sessions, quiet acknowledgments of failures that had been ignored for years. Then something unexpected happened. People stopped blaming Ryan. The narrative Derek had tried to plant, that Ryan had provoked him, manipulated the situation, never took root. Because once power collapses, loyalty collapses with it. Executives who'd once nodded along with Derek's strong leadership rhetoric suddenly remembered his behavior very clearly. People who'd stayed neutral suddenly had opinions, and none of them were in his favor. One afternoon, Ryan came home holding a small box. "What's that?" I asked. He opened it. Inside was a gift basket, expensive coffee, dark chocolate, and a polite, handwritten note from Summit's executive team thanking us for professionalism and cooperation. There was also an enclosed document, a confidential settlement offer, non-disclosure agreement, financial compensation, quiet closure. Ryan looked at me. "What do you think?" I read it once, then again. "They're not trying to buy silence," I said. "They're trying to prevent future mess." "And?" he asked. "I don't want the NDA," I said, "but the chocolate can stay." He laughed, real laughter, the kind that comes when something heavy finally lifts. We declined the NDA. No drama, no announcement. Just a clear refusal to erase what happened. 3 months later, the consequences reached their final shape. Ryan came home one evening earlier than usual, eyes bright in a way I hadn't seen in years. "They offered me Derek's position," he said. I blinked. "They what?" "Creative director," he said. "His job. Officially." I stood up so fast my chair scraped the floor. "You're serious?" "They said the department needs rebuilding," Ryan said. "Someone people trust." I didn't hesitate. I wrapped my arms around him and spun him around our kitchen like we were 20 again. "You earned this," I said. "Not because he fell, but because you stayed intact." The promotion changed things. Not just financially, though the salary bump helped, but structurally. Ryan had authority now, real authority. He restructured teams, removed impossible expectations, implemented boundaries that didn't punish people for having lives. Productivity went up. Morale went up. Turnover went down. Funny how that works when fear isn't your management strategy. The next annual company party rolled around in March. Same rooftops, same marble floors, same overpriced appetizers. Completely different energy. People talk to Ryan now, not around him. And they talk to me differently too. No more condescension, no more amused smiles about my hobby. A junior developer approached me nervously. "Ms. Cooper," he said, "I just wanted to say, the system you built, it's elegant. I've been studying the architecture. The authentication protocols are kind of legendary." I smiled. "Thanks. That means a lot coming from someone who actually reads the code." Ryan leaned in later, amused. "You have fans," he said. "Terrifying," I replied, "but acceptable." "And Derek?" Derek vanished. Until he didn't. Almost exactly 1 year after the party, I was speaking on a panel at a cybersecurity conference in Chicago. Afterward, walking through the exhibition hall, I spotted him. He was standing at a vendor booth. Cheap polo shirt, generic branding, no crowd. He looked smaller. Recognition hit him in stages when he saw me. Surprise, embarrassment, fear. "Claire," he said, voice unsteady. "Wow, I didn't expect to see you here." I raised an eyebrow. "Cybersecurity conference. Where else would I be?" He swallowed. We stood there surrounded by noise while his booth stayed empty. "So," he said finally, "you're doing well." "I am," I replied. "Ryan's doing great too. Creative director now." The color drained from his face. I heard," he muttered. "I'm sure you did," I said calmly. "It's funny how things work out when people are treated like people." He opened his mouth, searching for something. An excuse, an apology, relevance. I didn't give it to him. "I hope you learned something," I said. "But honestly, it doesn't matter to me anymore." I turned to leave. Behind me, Derek Walsh stayed exactly where he was. At a booth, selling something no one wanted. And for the first time, I felt no satisfaction. Just clarity. Because the truth had done what it always does. It didn't shout. It didn't retaliate. It simply stood until everything built on intimidation collapsed around it. That night, back in my hotel room, I called Ryan. The city outside my window hummed softly. Traffic below, lights blinking in distant offices where people were still chasing deadlines that felt urgent now, but would mean nothing later. "You're not going to believe who I ran into," I said. "Who?" Ryan asked immediately. "Derek, at the conference, working a vendor booth." There was a pause, then a quiet laugh. "How did he look?" I considered it. "Smaller," I said. "Not weaker, just smaller. Like someone who finally learned that power isn't permanent." Ryan was quiet for a moment. "Do you feel bad for him?" he asked. I thought about it honestly. About the spit, about the entitlement, about the way he'd claimed ownership of another human being like it was nothing. No, I said, I don't feel bad. I feel like balance happened. Ryan exhaled, relieved. When I got home, life didn't magically turn perfect. But it became cleaner. Ryan thrived in his new role, not because he wanted revenge, but because he finally had room to lead without fear. I kept doing my work, building systems most people would never see, protecting companies that understood the value of quiet competence. And our marriage? It changed too. Not because we'd won something, but because we'd stopped shrinking to protect other people's comfort. We talked more honestly, set firmer boundaries, stopped mistaking endurance for love. Here's what I learned. Power that relies on intimidation is fragile. Respect that relies on silence is borrowed. And dignity, real dignity, doesn't announce itself. It just refuses to disappear. Derek Walsh once looked at me and saw nothing but a carpenter wife, someone safe to dismiss, someone beneath his notice. He was wrong. But the real victory wasn't watching him fall. It was watching Ryan rise without becoming anything he wasn't. The truth doesn't always strike like lightning. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it gathers quietly. And then one day, without drama or shouting, it corrects the world. If you're listening to this and you're standing in a moment where staying silent feels safer than speaking up, know this. Silence protects systems, truth protects people. And choosing yourself doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. That was the last word on Derek Walsh. And the first honest chapter of the life Ryan and I are still building. Carefully, intentionally, and without anyone else claiming ownership of it.